Consumers have a lot of choices when it comes to beer. There's 8,000 craft breweries, give or take, in the United States today. And it's a category consumers really like to engage in. Consumers relish that opportunity to research the breweries and understand who they're spending their money with. We have an obligation to the communities that we're part of, and yes, to our shareholders as well, to address climate in a rapid, meaningful way, because the longevity of our businesses depend on it, as well as our coworkers and employees here depend on us having a business as well.
We care a lot about the community, our surrounding areas, and making sure that they prosper in the future. And I think because breweries are so essential to communities, they really focus on those types of things.
We make an agricultural product, so having access to clean water, having access to great hops, great barley, this is critical to us making a great product. And consumers see the impact of climate change in their everyday lives, and they are willing to support companies and brands that are taking real, authentic, serious action to help reduce the problems and address climate change.
The three main ingredients that go into beer, water is one, but barley and hops, the two main ingredients in beer, have something in common, and that is those two ingredients are almost exclusively used only for beer. Hops are very centralized in their production area and very centralized in the number of hop growers there are. Barley's completely the other way, and that is there are thousands of growers that sell to malting companies.
Fire and drought are two of the biggest risks to us from climate change. We need fresh crops every year to be able to continue to brew beer.
You start out buying grain in 55-pound bags, and then you graduate to 2,000-pound bags, and then now, where we are, where a rail car picks up the grain, it drops it probably 3 miles from here, and a truck takes it and dumps it in our silo. I think our silos hold 50,000 pounds of grain. So as you get bigger, you're able to leverage more and more things. You sort of move further and further to doing it more efficiently and more sustainably. We've done things like giving our spent grain to farmers. We're now testing out nitrogen instead of CO2 in some of our process. We're doing things like solar panels, like all those things, but the list will just keep going on and on and on. But it's really fun stuff because there's always new innovations that are kind of working their way down from the big guys to the small guys like us, where they actually become accessible.
New Belgium's goal is to be carbon neutral by 2030. And we recently had Fat Tire become the first certified carbon neutral beer in the United States. New Belgium was the first wind-powered brewery back in 1998. We have a huge solar array here at our brewery in Fort Collins, but we're continuing to invest in on-site renewables as well. Many of our emissions are tied to systemic issues. They're tied to the electric grid. They're tied to farming practices. They are tied to transportation issues. And so New Belgium's not in a position to solve any of those on its own. And so we use advocacy as a way to help rally other brewers, but frankly, other businesses, because we can't solve them, as I said, individually. We actually need the collective, and we need government policy and government regulation to really help us get after solving some of these bigger drivers of our own greenhouse gas emissions.
We work with all of our vendors from the very, very beginning. Part of our RFP process is a questionnaire that asks them questions about how they're being sustainable, what their goals are, what they plan to do in the next 5-10 years to make sure they're a sustainable company. And sometimes we do things on our own. Even if our vendors are not perfect, we spend time with the Department of Energy, OSU, Oregon State University, and our local community college to come here and audit what we do, and also audit how we work with our vendors to find how we can optimize.
I think the impetus for change is coming from consumers. I think it's coming from companies. I think it's also coming from shareholders and investors. We need to be thinking about true long-term sustainability of our businesses and our organizations, which means this has to be top of mind.
With the internet, with social media, with sort of transparency over the last, especially 20 to 30 years, consumers now can actually understand the positive and negative externalities. I think that is one of the greatest things that we have now is transparency of what actually is happening behind the scenes for a product to eventually get produced. Now we have this remarkable vehicle of the internet and social media in low-cost ways that small producers can say, here's my product, here's why it's different, here's what I care about, and here's why you should buy it.
There's a belief that medium-sized businesses, small businesses as well, can't afford regulation or policy around climate. The voice I bring to that is we're actually the businesses who can't afford climate change. We're the people who are going to pay more for raw ingredients, or will be cut off entirely from certain ingredients relative to bigger players who are out there. And so without addressing this, the economy is going to have fewer successful small businesses than it does today.
That is the greatest part about being a small business in this time, in this age, is that we have the ability to shine a light. We have the ability to tell our story. We have the ability to show consumers, hey, why are you going to buy my product that might be a little bit more expensive? But here's what I'm doing, both in my company, for my employees, for my community, and for the environment. And you can make the choice if you want to support this. And thankfully, consumers are choosing to support the people and the companies and the brands that they believe in. And that's it's a pretty special time, I think, to be running a small business in America.